Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Today on Another View, we'll talk about the legacy of President Obama from the perspective of the Black community. Our guest is Erin Aubry Kaplan, author of I Heart Obama. In her book, Kaplan offers a personal and cultural exploration of Barack Obama as Black president, Black icon, and Black folk hero. She also raises the question, is the first Black president a distraction and therefore detrimental to the grassroots fights on the ground in the African American community? I Heart Obama. We'll talk about it next on Another View, right after this news from NPR.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Before we get started, a quick reminder that the last town hall in our Race Let's Talk About It initiative is very soon upon us. It's Tuesday, April the 5th at 6 p.m. at the Fort Monroe Theater in Hampton. The topic is race, religion, relationships, and the hope for redemption. The town hall is free and open to everyone, but we need you to register to attend. So please go to whro.org/Talk About Race to sign up, and I look forward to seeing you on April the 5th. I like to think of our guest today as my soulmate in the media world. She does for print what I have the honor of doing on radio. Erin Aubry Kaplan is a journalist who has been covering Black issues for 25 years, 9 years as staff writer for LA Weekly, and 2 years as a weekly op-ed columnist for the Los Angeles Times. She's currently a contributing editor to the op-ed section of the LA Times. She's authored several books, and her latest is I Heart Obama, where she explores the legacy of President Obama from her own perspective as well as that of the African American community. And she is joining us today by phone. Hi, Erin. How are you?
Hi, Barbara. I'm well, thank you.
Good. It is really good to talk with you. Before we get into our discussion, I found a New York Times video article called Has a Black President Changed America? Now, it's by Yamiche Alcindor and Erica Berenstein. Doug Mills is the photographer. And let's take a listen.
At this defining moment, change has come to America.
He's changed so much, the way the world might see people like me or people like him. He's given me more confidence than I've ever had.
It meant a lot to see that my children are going to grow up knowing that there's been a Black president for almost their entire life now.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
And when do you think that you're going to see another Black president?
When my son becomes president.
I'm not really sure if I will see another Black president in my lifetime, because what happened with President Obama is sort of a miracle, because our system isn't built on the fact that a Black man or a Black woman can become president.
If we never have another Black president, I will try my hardest to get to that point of maybe even me being president or me supporting someone that wants to be president.
The young people's not going to accept the things that people like I did, things that I accepted.
The voice of the people of color has risen to such a level because of Barack Obama to speak up. It was a voice that had not been heard within our community since the 60s and the 70s.
I'm worried about losing that visual of a positive, professional Black man that people are able to see all the time.
I want the things that he believed in to continue. I want the nation to invest in Black men and boys. I want them to invest in the violence prevention work that they've done with the Department of Justice, because those things, we see them at a local level.
I think that this country has learned different lessons. Some Black Americans or African Americans will feel that we haven't gained as much as we thought we had. Some white Americans have learned that they're a little more racist than they thought they were.
It's almost like Charles Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. I think it brought out the worst in us because prejudices and racism is still alive and well and thriving in the United States, but also brought the best of us out too.
Now, these were the perspectives of 8 people from the Chicago area. You heard the voices of Paul Adeleke, who is a teenage student in Chicago, Donna Miller, a volunteer with the Hillary Clinton campaign, Jakia Hobbs, who's also a student, Anthony Lovelace, a high school senior, Howard Williams, who is a deacon of Liberation Christian Center, Dr. James Dukes, bishop of the Liberation Christian Center, Carrie Steele, who's also a Clinton campaign volunteer, Mark Payne, executive director of Ceasefire, Illinois, and Sonia Wallace, Evanston, Illinois resident. And they all had a little different twist on what they think about the legacy of the president. Why do we have so many different thoughts about this, Erin?
Oh, wow. Well, because Obama has really been a complicated figure for us. I think I say in the book he brings together so many different threads of Black thought, of Black history, of politics. I mean, someone at the end, the guy at the end said, "Well, it was the best of times, the worst of times," and that's kind of true. I mean, Obama became president, and by the way, it still amazes me that he became president twice. I mean, none of us were expecting to have a Black president in our lifetimes. However old you are, you didn't expect to have a Black president, and kind of suddenly there he was, and it forced a discussion amongst Black people of, wow, what does this mean? Is this change going to mean real change? Because it certainly was a change in skin color in terms of, someone in the White House. It was a huge change. But was that going to mean substantive change for Black people? On the one hand, we knew it was not automatically going to change anything. At the same time, we could not help but hope there would be change because, after all, here's a Black man in the White House, a Black man who, by the way, is socially conscious, very aware of Black history, has described his own place in that history. So there was so much that he brought up for us that I think had been dormant for quite a while. Somebody else mentioned in the clips, we haven't really seen this kind of political energy and excitement since the 60s and 70s, and that's true. So there were a lot of things that Obama brought to the surface for Black Americans and for white Americans too. A lot of hope.
And I'm curious too, because in the clips now everyone who in the clip that we played, everyone was African American.
Yes.
Do you think that the same perception would be given if everyone were white?
No, I don't think so. I really don't think so. I really think that his resonance his meaning amongst Black people is deeper and different than it is for other Americans. Mm-hmm. I think look, white people read in him a lot of symbolism too, but a very different kind of symbolism. I really think a lot of white people thought, here's the guy, the Black man who's going to kind of solve our racial problems, or kind of give us all a break, kind of put a period on this long struggle of against racism and racial injustice. For us, it didn't do that at all. Nobody Black that I know believes in anything called post-racialism, and I think that was the great hope of non-Black people. For Black people, this was a very euphoric event. Obama becomes president, but it did not at all mean that our racial issues were going to go away or even kind of recede a bit. As we've seen, they've come to the fore, and we are at a very ugly point right now. So I don't think that surprised a lot of Black people. I think it's been painful to experience and difficult to watch, but it does not surprise a lot of Black people that we are that so much racial animosity just came right to the surface and continues to come to the surface.
Mm-hmm. So when I was reading your book, and a lot of it I could resonate with because I remember exactly where I was when the president was sworn into office. And you talked about the euphoria that was there, but yet people still ask that question. And there's a quote, if you don't mind, I'm going to read it very quickly
go ahead.
Because I think it's very representative of kind of the dichotomy of thought that goes on within the Black community as we look at this. Because you say, for example, you say, what does this mean? Why is he being asked that? God, why is he responding that way? If I were him, I'd give those crazy white folks a piece of my mind. What's he got to lose that we haven't lost already? Then in the same breath, we may say, uncertainly but hopefully, well, he's doing the best he can. If I was under pressure like that, getting blank from Congress and big corporations in my own party, not to mention stuff from black folks who righteously need so much and want me to deliver it yesterday, I'd have lost my mind or died a long time ago. Barack is staying alive to see another day, so maybe he'll try something else. I mean, that to me just really broke down kind of we want him to do everything to help the black community, but at the same time, well, he made it. Leave him alone. He's doing the best he can.
Right. Well, you know what? I thank you for that reading. It actually, you brought it alive. And you know what? That is very representative of our complicated view of Obama. And it all depends on how your expectations, and this whole idea of expectations is something he brought up for us. I think, you know, we've been going along for many years, not expecting a whole lot from our elected officials. I mean, you know, we tend to vote on personality. We don't really critically analyze all of our electeds. And suddenly we have this president, highest office in the land, and we have to ask ourselves, well, what do we expect him to do? We have to articulate something, but we don't really have a set of expectations. And they ran the spectrum. You know, on the one hand, we wanted, like you just read, we wanted so many things for him to address, and he's in a very unique position. He's not the mayor or a governor or a city councilman or even a senator. He is a president. So we have all these big issues, these macro issues that we really want him to address. Mm-hmm. At the same time, because he is so prominent, and he is, you know, arguably the free leader of the world, we also know he's going to be very politically compromised, because history has taught us that if you're black and you're in a high place, the higher you go, the less you can address black folks. It's called assimilation, right? Mm-hmm. And we knew in a way he could, you know, he was not going to be able to or he would not want to directly address us. And number 3, and this is in the chapter that I read about, you know, about him, Obama himself. Oh, right. We could see he's a guy who is naturally a centrist with a small c. I mean, he's a guy who really believes he can bring everybody to the table. So his personality is one that's not inclined to take a stand, not just for us, but for any one group. You know, right? You know, it's just he wants to be the bridge builder.
Well, and he said that as all boats rise, that everybody rises, and that was kind of his centrist perspective on that. But he also took a lot of flack from some within our community, because they really wanted him to go in and make a true difference within this community. Do you think that's fair?
Well, it's not fair. You know, that's kind of a loaded word, fair. But, you know, I think, no, it's not fair, and it is unrealistic. But we kind of said, so what? So, but the fact of the matter is, no matter who is president, technically, no matter who is president, that president would have, we feel, a moral obligation to address the many crises that black people have, you know, experienced and have experienced a long time. It's just that we as a community have not really held any president accountable to that for a long time. Even Bill Clinton, who we called the black president, which, you know, I always thought was kind of sarcastic, you know, if you look closely at his policies, didn't do a whole lot for us. But, you know, with Obama, you know, suddenly the game changed, and we were, you know, we had to grapple with what can he do? What should he do? What will he do? And we kind of shifted back and forth between, okay, we'll just have to wait and see. Whatever he does for us will be a plus. And then on the other hand, you know, on the other end of the spectrum is, well, we have these 5, 6 things that we want him to do, and if he only does one of them, that's just not enough. So I think we struggled a lot with our own expectations, and it forced us to kind of look at our own lack of a movement. Because we have not had that for decades. We have many causes, but not a unified movement. And I think Obama illuminated that. And really, it was sort of like, you know, we complained about him or we embraced him, but in a way we were kind of looking in a mirror, looking at ourselves and where we are in our own history.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We're talking about the legacy of President Obama. And do you think that it should be a different legacy within the Black community versus the general community? I'm curious, Erin, as you talk with people, and you interviewed many, many people and talked to a variety of folks as you put this book together. When white people would say, or some other African Americans for that matter, well, he's president for everyone, and so therefore you should not look at him as the Black president, et cetera.
Well, that's kind of like people say, well, all lives matter, right?
Yeah.
Sure, of course, that's a given. But I think that's just another way people who raise that are just what they're really saying is, look, you all don't really, you all need to be quiet. We don't want to deal with these racial issues. Most Americans, including a lot of Black folk, are just tired of talking about racial injustice. They're just they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to. They certainly don't want the president to talk about it because ultimately it reflects poorly on America. It brings up all of our shortcomings. It brings up kind of the hypocrisy of the democratic ideal because we have so much unfinished business with race. And here's a president who's supposed to symbolize American ideals. He becomes a symbol for those ideas. How is Obama, a Black man, going to represent those democratic ideals and also represent our grievances? This is another kind of existential problem he has as a Black president that other presidents didn't have. The symbolism. For us, he symbolizes great success, but also he's supposed to carry our grievances. How can he carry those grievances into an office where he's supposed to symbolize the best of America? It's a really interesting problem. And I think he tried to always walk that line. He wore he waved the flag, which for some of us is already a problem. He had to wave the flag and be America. But also he had to be kind of, the critique of America. And I think that's very hard to do, to put those two things together. And Obama, many would argue he went too far to the American ideal thing. He kept, he wanted to represent the great country we are, and most of us have not lived that great country. We're still waiting for it. And I think he was given it's sort of an impossible task, but I think that he felt it could be done. And he finally realized at some point that you can't equally represent all interests. At some point, you got to take a stand and say, okay, this is important. This needs to be articulated. I'm going to stand for this. And he did stand for certain things. He stood for marriage equality. He came around on several issues. But unfortunately, I really think, Black issues are always at the bottom of the political barrel. And Obama knew that as well. And I think that, unfortunately, that's, he inherited that view from his predecessors, and we kind of saw how that played out.
So you talk in the book about him being a folk hero.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that and what you mean by that and how that manifests itself within the Black community.
Sure. Well, I think that even though, he is this great symbol, he's this amazing first in our history of Black firsts, I also see him as an ordinary Black American, middle-class American, like many of us, who, and he and I are the same age, so he's of that first post-civil rights generation, who had high ambition, and he did well for himself. And in many ways, I see him as one of us in that here he is, well, his job happens to be president. He's got a pretty good job, or he will for another year. But he is in that space, trying to integrate the space that has never been occupied by a Black person, and he comes up against a huge, a huge brick wall of opposition, racial opposition, just real intense. And so one of the things we see him do for 8 years is try to break through that wall. And that is a very familiar scenario for many of us, trying to basically assimilate in America, trying to integrate spaces where Black folk usually are not. And he was in that struggle. And so we put him in that struggle, which is why, when he got elected, I immediately saw his image go up next to Martin, next to Malcolm. You know, we can discuss later whether he belongs there or not. But we really, I think fundamentally, a lot of black folk I talk to see him as a member of the black community who, paid his dues. You know, he did all the right things. He got the education. He succeeded on his own terms. And yet he still kind of knocking at the door of acceptance. And I think that really resonated for a lot of black folk. And we empathize with that. And we kind of, watched him try to do his job, basically, against a great, great resistance. And, so I think in the beginning, even during the euphoria, during the first, inauguration, many of us sensed this was going to be a very difficult journey, and he may not succeed in achieving even a little bit of that one America idea that he had, that I think he really believed in. He was probably going to fail at that, but we were going to appreciate his struggle to enact an ideal, which is a very familiar dynamic to us. That's a lot of our black heroes in the past, our heroes and folk heroes have tried to do that, tried to get over despite great resistance, and that is the of black struggle.
Absolutely. Our phone lines are lit up, so I'm going to take a call, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Herb joins us from Southampton County. Hi, Herb. You're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
Okay.
And how is your guest today?
We're doing great.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Okay. I would agree with the young lady that your guest. I am in my 60s, and I kind of grew up in the area where we actually really never even thought of a president becoming a black person becoming a president. But nevertheless, I kind of felt that was going to happen because this country is considered as a melting pot country, which we have all nations that joins in here in the freedom of liberty. But I'm looking at the struggle that President Obama has gone through. He also really spoke of it at the beginning of his legacy as president, saying that what his struggle was going to be because of what he had inherited from our predecessors, from the other presidents and everything. But nevertheless, he's doing an outstanding job, and I praise him because even today, we look at the way crime is today. For an example, we never see anything of the black races killing any other races as police officers or anything, and they're not really taken to court. But when we do, it's actually blown up. This is something that has came up and has always been there. But nevertheless, this is what is going on. So I just like to make a comment on that.
Okay.
And y'all have a great day.
All right, thank you. We appreciate the call. I think Herb is trying to talk about some of the things that have happened within the country since the president has been in office, and you wonder whether because he is an African American president, it has brought out, as one of the other speakers said, one of the really ugly sides, of the country on occasion.
Oh, I think there's no question.
Yeah.
I think there's no question that he has his symbolism for a lot of people is not positive at all, but quite the opposite, quite negative. I think Bill Maher said once, well, every day a white supremacist wakes up and sees Obama in office, it's a bad day. So, I mean, it's just by being being president, I think it just angered a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And we saw from the beginning, he was called a socialist, a Muslim, and other. This is all code language, for a sentiment which is black man should not be in that office. He should not be representing all of us. That is hard for a lot of people to swallow. Yeah. Just historically, it's never been done. So I think there's no question that Obama, through no intention of his own, has brought these things to the surface and made them. And unfortunately, I'm sure he felt he'd have the opposite effect, and that just didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. If you're just joining us, we're talking with journalist Erin Aubry Kaplan, author of I Heart Obama. Erin, why did you write the book?
You know something, Robert? I actually was not thinking of writing this book. This is actually kind of an extension of a short piece that I did for the first book I wrote that I put together, which was an anthology of of essays and reporting from the last 20 years. And for that book, this was back in 2011, I wrote a brief essay about Obama which I wrote about 2009, 2010, which seems like a long time ago. And so for this book, a publisher asked me to expand on just more about Obama. You know, what do I think of him now? What does he represent? And I sat down without any real idea of what I thought. I mean, some idea, of course. And the first thing that popped in my head that I wanted to say was, you know, I unapologetically heart Obama, meaning I feel very connected to him. I very more connected to him as a president than any other president in my lifetime. But underneath that love, that kind of romance I was having with Obama, what else did I feel? And what did other people feel? Because I think what I, saw in the media was, oh, black folks support Obama, they voted for him 90-something%, and that's the end of the story. I thought there was a lot more, it was more complicated than that. We did support him politically, but I wanted to just take a more intimate look at what do we feel about this man who is our first black president, maybe our only black president. Personally, how does that change our own views of ourselves, our leadership, our history? And I was really interested in this question of, okay, so he got to the top of the mountain. He got to the mountaintop. He's president. And what is that going to mean for us? If this really doesn't change anything, and some people would say it hasn't, then where do we go from here? How do we proceed in this country? Obama's answered that question. Well, what will happen if we have a black president? Well, we saw what happened. And even though we are very proud, he is a great symbol, et cetera, if we can't move the needle with a black man in office, how can we move the needle? And so I wanted to look at all these more subtle questions and perceptions, and including the fact that, Obama, for a lot of black women I know, was like the perfect man. Yeah. He was, that was another great symbol that was sort of missed. I mean, he was on the cover of Essence not for nothing, many times. He symbolized so much good in us, so much, that we idealize. And at the same time, this guy, this black man who, seemed to be sent from central casting to be president, could not really get over in the way we had hoped he could. I wanted to get underneath those feelings and really bring them out and also explore my own feelings about Obama. But anyway, the heart Obama is an unapologetic embrace of him. I think black folk were told from the beginning, kind of, we got a lot of messages that said, look, he's president, but don't you all think you can't claim him. He belongs to America. He's for all people, not you. But, we all know that, look, he has a very special relationship with black people. And I wanted to make that very clear. Before I talked about everything else.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Eric Claville joins us from Hampton. Hello, Mr. Eric. How are you?
Hi, Barbara. How's everyone?
We're doing great.
Doing well. Thank you.
Good. First of all, let me thank you for having this show. Ironically, I've been having this conversation with a lot of my colleagues on a daily basis as we get down to the end of Obama's presidency. Now, for me, I have several constructive criticisms, but also I have high praise. Given what he has been confronted with the Republicans saying that we're going to make him a one-term president, we're not going to do anything to support him or help him. I mean, every single day you're coming into your workplace and everyone is against you. That's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure being the first. He's the first black president we've ever had in this country, given our 400-year history of laws and policies and practices that limited African Americans. So for that, I give him high praise. However,
okay, you get one criticism, Eric, because we got the phones are lit up.
Oh, sure. My criticism is that he did not put forth any meaningful public policy, either through executive order or work through Congress, to help the African-American communities, whether it be urban communities or whether it be African-American families and the like. And I think that we also underutilized his wife, who's a beautiful, educated black woman. We underutilized her.
Okay, I'm going to let Erin respond to you. Thanks, Eric, for the call. We appreciate it. Erin, you want to respond?
Thanks, Eric. There's a lot in there.
Yes, there's a whole lot in there.
I'll start with his last comment. Michelle Obama, I agree with him. She was underutilized. I think that was very deliberate, though. I think that even though she was very popular, she was more threatening to what I call the white opposition than Obama. She more outspoken, more visibly pro-black, and I think she was tamped down. I think she kind of kept herself under wraps to help him. And I think that's unfortunate because I think people were really expecting her to be kind of a black Eleanor Roosevelt, or just to be a real strong figure. And I think she felt she could not be that. In terms of his other comments, he perfectly embodies what I say in the book, which is he supports Obama. Really resonates with Obama's just struggle to do his job in a very hostile work environment. We're all very familiar with that. On the other hand, he's critical, and he cited Obama's lack of substantive policy that would help us directly. So we have a lot of this critical support of Obama, and this is something that has tortured us. How do we measure him? Do we say he's a failure because he did not do certain things, or do we look at what he has done and say, for example, the Health Care Act, and say, well,
his point was with the Health Care Act that if he got it passed for everyone, that it would, by extension, raise the black community.
Yeah, that's that trickle-down thing. Many black folk would argue, no, it needs to be more targeted than that. Well, you could argue that, his former Attorney General, Eric Holder, they did reform, the federal sentencing guidelines that really impacted black folk. There were some things but this is Obama's style. They were more subtle. They didn't scream. They didn't have a name that said, to help black people act. He never did that.
Exactly.
He argued, and he argued this to BET during an interview that I saw some years ago. He said, "Look, you all are not paying attention. I am doing things. I am thinking of black folks. I'm just not calling it that." So that's what he said. You could argue, against that, but that's what he actually told
people. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people accept that. Some people say, nope, that's not enough. So this conversation goes on.
Absolutely. I want to get to as many calls as we can because our phone lines are lit up. So if you're calling in and you get a busy signal, just call back. Let's talk to Pamela in Hampton. Hi, Pam. You're on the air.
Hi. I'm sorry I got you on speakerphone for a second because I'm going on a military base.
Oh, okay.
Okay. No problem.
Okay. Thank you. See, they busted me.
Oh.
Anyway, I'm a white voter, and I voted for Obama twice. And I didn't vote for him because he was black. I voted for him because he was the best candidate at the time. And, if he ran again, he would still be the best candidate. But what has really gotten my ire over the last 8 years is that here's a man that I voted in and, I gave my very valuable vote for. And the vitriol that has been against him has been so utterly ridiculous. From the birth certificate to the I don't know, his wife getting flack for telling children to eat correctly. I just think it's clearly got to be racism because there's no other reason to condemn any of these actions that he's done. I honestly think he's done just about everything that I voted him in to do. And just as a final point, I'd like to say that, I don't think the argument that the black community is simply voting for people because of their race, because I don't remember Herman Cain doing particularly well. And Ben Carson has not done particularly well. So I think it really is about the man, and it really is about his credentials. And I respect him. And, I'm really disappointed. Yeah, I'm not going to speak for all white people because that's not how I play it. But I'm just
and we don't speak for all black people
really
either, so we get it.
disappointed in the behavior I've seen over the past 8 years. And when he does not take over as a fascist dictator at the end of this year and become the Antichrist and all the things they said he was going to do, there's going to be a lot of crow eating.
Okay, thank you so much, Pam. We appreciate your call. Erin, you want to respond?
Well, Pam makes a really good point. I appreciate her call, too. And, one good point she made is she said she didn't vote for him because he's black or because he's qualified. Well, we did the same thing. But she does point out, one of Obama's qualifications in our minds was he's not Herman Cain, he's not Clarence Thomas, he's not Ben Carson. He is a guy who is not a sort of black prop of conservative ideology. He's he's his own guy. He is quote unquote liberal. He, like I said earlier, he's socially conscious. So in our minds, that is an important qualification. So he is a certain kind of black man. He's not, we're pretty sure that he had a conscience. But I totally agree with Pam. I think she was struggling to say, look, I don't speak for all white people, but they embarrass me. I mean, this is clear racism that she clearly did not expect to see, and it disappoints her, and it disappoints and pains a lot of black folk who are not too surprised by it, because it was just kind of shameful to see it on the world stage like that. The disrespect, the coded language, the birther movement, which, by the way, was spearheaded by Donald Trump, and this whole, this opposition that came at him in so many ways, I think was really dispiriting for all of us, particularly the black folk. Although we've been so, this is something very, very familiar to us, but it's a new level of dispiritedness because it was directed at the president, and we've heard so much in the past. Especially during George Bush's term, the second George Bush. Well, many people have issues with George Bush, but I constantly heard people say, but he's the president, we have to respect the presidency. We did not respect the presidency because Obama occupied it. And that was really, painful to watch.
Exactly. Ann joins us from Chesapeake. Hi, Ann, you're on the air.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I was just listening just now to what the author said, and she's right. She's absolutely right in what she's saying. I'm actually a Hispanic female, and but I consider myself also, I guess you say, white, because my husband's Caucasian, and so coming from that perspective, looking in on it from this area, I was actually really shocked too by how people look at Obama. They don't look at him in a way as he's a president. He's a leader of our country. There is no respect for him. There's no showing of honor, and it's not even having to do with like your political point of view. If you're a Republican or Democrat, I don't think it really mattered. I think what it was really just that he was an African American, and it's so funny. There's so many things that he did in the White House that I never had an issue with. That he was being a man, he was being a father, he was being a husband, and he was being a black man, because that's who he is. He can't leave that behind. That's who he is. But he would do anything, just being who he is, and people seem so critical of that. And you could see it kind of through the media, but I would just even hear it in conversations with people, white people, friends, just these little things, little jabs at him, and it's just a shame because, racism is not gone in America. It's not. And we can see that even now, today, just with this new election and the things that are coming out, all this ugliness. We have such a far way to go as Americans. We really do. And it really shames me because, I guess I am still part of the South where we live here in this Tidewater area. We are considered the South. But I kind of thought, we kind of got over that. I think we've grown out of that, but we haven't. You can see it now, even today, with this new election.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily a big supporter of Obama, but I'm just saying, just as a person, as who he is, I don't think he ever was really given a chance. I really don't think he was. Okay.
And thanks so much for your call. We appreciate that. Erin, I'll give you a chance to respond, and then we're going to take another call.
Ann makes an excellent point, which is the resistance to Obama, I think, was deeper than political party affiliation, Republican, Democrat. I think there was an overall resistance to Obama that ran a whole spectrum. It wasn't just Tea Party and, that intense, obvious resistance. I think it ran a whole gamut, and I think that's really, really rooted in our history of racism, as she points out, of very legalized, codified racism that says black folk are less than. Doesn't matter if he's president. A lot of folk liked Obama and voted for him. I'm not saying those people are racist, but I think there was a reluctance to embrace him, and this is why I put it out there that, I'm one of those people. I embrace him. I feel vested in him. I think a lot of people didn't do that, and in a way, Obama ends up sort of isolated, and it hampered him, and I think that's a spiritual problem we have because we have this caste system that puts black folk at the bottom, and Obama was not above that. He was not, and that was a truth that we as a country have to face.
Let's see. Jimmy joins us from Hampton. Hi, Jimmy. You're on the air.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
When I came into the conversation, I was hearing that a lot of black folks were disappointed that they hadn't been furthered by Obama's presidency as a voting bloc. I'm white, and I voted for Obama too, but I think the big problem is, and we're seeing it also as we're also seeing the people who voted for Obama now voting largely for Hillary Clinton, is that black or white, president or person, we're not being forwarded because the color is green. There's entirely too much money in politics, and it doesn't matter who gets elected as long as the money is standing between us and our democracy.
Okay, we will get Erin's response from that. Thanks, Jimmy, for the call. We appreciate it. Erin, you want to respond?
Sure. Well, Jimmy makes another really good point. Yeah, money corrupts, absolutely, right? And Obama, I think, spent record amounts of money on his own campaigns. I mean, that is a big problem, and many people. One of the critiques I heard over and over about Obama, as I talked to black folk, was his defense of Wall Street. Look, Wall Street is America. America is money. Obama becomes president. He represents those interests. We wish he would have done differently, but that is America. I mean, that's not surprising. But I still believe, even if all things being equal, and they're not, if it were just about money, Obama would have gotten a lot more done. He would have not had so much opposition because he was really pretty friendly to moneyed interests. And that still didn't matter. Like you said, Barbara, from the moment one, the Republican Party said, whatever Obama does, we're opposed to. It doesn't matter if it enriches us. It doesn't matter if it enriches the banks. It doesn't matter. It just didn't matter. So that entrenched opposition really was not political, as Ann said. It was something deeper than that and went beyond money.
Okay, I think we can get in one more call. Brian joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Brian. You're on the air.
Praise for Barack Obama. How refreshing. I just wanted to say that I am 51 years old. I'm a white man, and I will truly miss Barack and Michelle. I think that they are the best husband and wife, whatever you want to say, to be in the White House in my lifetime. And I wanted to say that I think Barack was the perfect person to be the first black president because he is so intelligent and so cool and so calm and even keel that he was able to handle. He had the tools to handle this absurd thing that was unleashed on him, and I'm going to miss him. And real quick, I just wanted to say that I think that the thing with a lot of the white folks is they blame the weakest link, which is the Hispanics and other people, when it's like the last caller said, this isn't about black and white, it's about green. And unless people really start to realize that, we will never change, because the only way that we're going to change is together. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate your phone call. Something to go along with what Brian said, Erin, and that is the idea you talk about in the book about insider versus outsider, meaning in terms of say, Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, others fought against the system. Yes. President Obama decided to go inside the system and work it from that angle.
Right.
Do you think one works better than the other? Well, we know as history goes on, I guess it's a better question.
Well, it's interesting. Black people as a group are seen as outsiders. We are as a group historically marginalized. So all the black leaders in our history, even up to Jesse Jackson, who ran for president twice in the 80s, we were always pressing on the system. Outsiders trying to pressure the system to change, for our benefit. And then Obama turns that on its head. He becomes the ultimate insider. He is the president. He becomes the symbol of American power. And yet, at the same time, he's treated like an outsider, like a marginalized black person. And this is one of many paradoxes. I think Obama felt truly, as this ultimate insider, technically, he could bring about change from the inside. The problem was once he got inside, he found he was still on the outside. So, because it didn't matter that he achieved this office. He was still, as the last caller said, he's still a black man. Oh, I'm sorry, another previous caller, I think it was Ann, who said he's still however high he got, he's still a black man, and that just dictated how we saw him, and that dictated how we treated him. And so, he never solved that paradox of being the ultimate insider, who at the same time was treated as the outsider. And it's like Ann said. I think it was Ann. He could not escape his blackness. That's who he is. That's all of us are who we are. That is who he is, and we could not forgive him. Many people could not see past who he is.
Okay, we got about 2 minutes left, and the last question I want to ask you is a question we got from Facebook, which is, do you think the Obamas will become more involved in quote-unquote black issues after the presidency?
That is $1 million question. I think I have no idea. Maybe Obama will join the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't know. Maybe he'll return to his roots as an organizer. It'll be very telling to see what he does. I would hope that he would, but I think whatever he does, it will definitely kind of confirm or kind of affirm the question of who is he really? What is he really interested in? Without any restrictions, without having to be the bridge builder or the guy who brings everybody together. What will he do? I don't know. I think, frankly, he should come to Hollywood because he's a great performer. He's a good actor with great comic timing. So maybe that's something he's thinking about.
And then we could go from there. The book is called I Heart Obama. It is by Erin Aubry Kaplan, who is African American, by the way.
Yes, I am. I know my name confuses people.
Yes. And we really appreciate you being with us here on Another View today. Again, the book is called I Heart Obama. Thank you so very much. And we'll be right back.
I've seen death, but the mall stays the same. The sun is shining through the blue haze.
Hello, my name is Alana Miller. I'm playing the role of Kato on Underground, and you're listening to Another View on 89.5 FM.
We will stand, rejoice in victory. We fall down.
And that relates to our very next story. But before I go there, let me apologize to those of you who called in. We did have some phone problems, so we got in as many calls as we could. A new television series is taking a long, hard look at the struggles, triumphs, and tragedies of runaway slaves who used the Underground Railroad as their quest for freedom. Named after the journey, the program is called Underground and stars actors Aldous Hodge and Journey Smollett-Bell. Our Lisa Godley spoke with them and the show's creators about how Underground differs from other recent stories about slavery.
I've seen death, but the mall stays the same.
Underground starts on a Georgia plantation in the mid-1850s, quickly delving into the backstories of the show's main characters, exploring their thoughts, desires, and pain.
I've been a slave all my life, waiting to die, to live for a miracle. But I'm done waiting.
Aldous Hodge plays Noah, the plantation's blacksmith, who is willing to risk his life for freedom.
Noah has been sold to different plantations. He's seen a little bit, and when he was a teenager, he heard rumors about black people being free. So he's held this in his heart and in his mind for years. Being a blacksmith, he's afforded the opportunity to actually venture out, go lease his skills to different plantations, different people. Of course, the proceeds come back to the Macon plantation master, but he's able to see a different side of life, and he's hungry for it. So he comes up with the courage to finally just go run.
Journey Smollett-Bell is Rosalie, a young woman who works in the master's house.
She's never left the plantation. She's never been exposed to anything outside this world that she knows. Her mom has really been pretty successful so far at keeping her from questioning anything or dreaming about a life outside of her current situation. When we meet her in the pilot, there are a few events that happen to her that just shake her whole world, and she begins to be really unsettled and unable to just accept that this is all there is to life.
When she meets Noah, they discover their kindred spirits.
It's Rose, right?
Rose Lee?
I'm Noah. I know your brother. I don't think we ever spoke before. You don't leave the big house much. Well, I always wonder what it must be like up there, sleeping in them nice comfy beds.
Still slaves, don't matter where we sleep.
Noah's escape plan will take a group of slaves on a 600-mile trek to freedom using the Underground Railroad.
We gonna have to fight for every step.
The show's creators, Joe Pekoski and Misha Green, describe Underground as a story about America's first superheroes.
We started with the thriller, we started with the prison break, we started with the adventure, because it is the most heroic story in American history.
And again, the romance, it's hopeful, there's laughter, there's all of those things. We can see people be people, and we can see them do this exciting stuff. The more research we did, again, it's the truth is stranger than fiction aspect of it, is that we couldn't make up this stuff.
What makes Underground different is it's not about the institution of slavery, but about the revolution that led many to freedom long before the Emancipation Proclamation. Aldous Hodge says young people who may not know a lot about our history but are struggling to understand today's racial climate can glean a lot from the program. He sums it up this way.
Do you understand why the culture is the way it is today? Our show is definitely a catalyst for that education and understanding why people believe in injustice and why so many people had to fight against it. But we give you a fun ride while you're learning. You don't even know you're in class. You're having fun. It gives you the best of both without serving it up on a heavy plate that makes you feel weighted down at the end of the day.
Whatever it takes to get her free.
We have to protect our cargo.
This is the toast of the underdogs. Now we doing it our way.
I want to be counted. It's our hands that built this country. Our blood that's running through the heart of it.
No going back. Not for any of us.
Light 'em up, light 'em up. Light 'em up, light 'em up.
Welcome to the Underground.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
And you can check your local listings if you'd like to check out Underground. We are looking forward to a huge turnout for the last town hall in our series, Race, Let's Talk About It. Would love to see you in the place, and that place is the Fort Monroe Theater in Hampton on Tuesday, April the 5th. Doors open at 6 p.m., and we'll start the conversation promptly at 6:30. Our topic is race, religion, relationships, and hopes for redemption. Come join us and bring your friends, family, and members of your faith for this critical conversation about race and religion. Please visit whro.org/talkaboutrace and register. And thank you so much for joining us for Another View today. If you'd like to hear the show again or share it with a friend, please visit our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. We're on Facebook. You can find us on iTunes, and I'm on Twitter at Barbara Ham Lee. Next week, it's Another View on Health with Dr. Keith Newby. We'll discuss the latest treatment in Parkinson's disease. And on Monday, coming up on Hearsay with Kathy Lewis, we're talking about the end-of-life plan, having one in place, and how these advanced directives can spare family members from heartaches and headaches. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Kamaria Mason answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Pay it forward and say something kind to someone you don't know. You just could make their day. Thanks for listening, everyone, and let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View.